So just as Dr. Femi was just trying to take us, so there's actually significance to having resource assessment. So one of those things that you need to look at is the wind resource. Of course, South Africa is actually blessed with wind energy, and across the globe, across the country. However, there are special hotspot zones wherein wind is stronger than the rest of the country. So the country has actually carried out a national study wherein the renewable energy development zones have been delineated, just as Dr. Femi said. You could see it in that slide there. You could see the transmission corridors and exploration corridors for wind and solar. And of course, solar is also one of the viable resources within the country, even though it is not uniformly spread across the country, most especially the concentrated solar power. So for solar energy, it has two components which we'll be talking about later. So we'll also try to look at the bioenergy resource. The bioenergy resource is also very vital, and it has a wide acceptance in the country, even though its application for electricity or power generation is still being developed at the moment. So the solar resource, just as I said on that slide, you could see the solar PV resource quantification for the country, and you could see several local municipalities there. So this was when we were trying to map out what is the resource available in each local municipality. So we developed this map at PEETS, trying to look at which local municipality is stronger in terms of solar PV power exploration. So the solar energy resource actually has two components. That's the global horizontal irradiance and direct normal irradiance. Of course, we're not going to the nitty-gritties or the technicalities this morning. This is just high level. So the GHI, just for information's sake, is actually the component of the solar radiation that hits the Earth that can be explored for solar PV power generation, while the direct normal irradiance is that component that is responsible for siting concentrated solar power. That is why you see many of these CSP plants in Hopkinton. Of course, Hopkinton is very hot, and that's the DNI component of solar radiation. So these are like sample platforms for which you could actually do this preliminary resource assessment. And in fact, South Africa has a bioenergy resource atlas. That's we have the link there. So I tried sharing the slide with Katie, but I think it's bouncing back, but I will reshare it. So maybe to circulate to other colleagues as well. So who might just want to maybe play around with some of these sites. So we have solar, we have hydropower potential as well. So there was this can I call it? It was a project that was developed by a German company, so in partnership with ECOWAS and SADC. So they developed hydropower potential and green hydrogen potential. This one is for the SADC, trying to look for green hydrogen potential for SADC and that for that one for ECOWAS. So we could actually play around with this. So energy needs assessment is actually very vital. You know, just as my colleague Dr. Femi was talking about, the general IRP is there, Integrated Resource Plan 2019. But unfortunately, you asked me, and that has been the questions that we've been contending with, or let me say we've been faced while dealing with several municipalities, local and district, is that yes, we have the hierarchy, but what is our place in the hierarchy? How do we come to play? What is our participation? What is our role? Many of these municipalities don't even know the energy they need. They don't even know the energy they need long term, short term, even now at the moment. So that's the sense of the energy need assessment. So one, you need to carry out that, one need to understand the landscape, the South African energy landscape. And those pictures there just talks about the bid windows, the transmission corridors, the renewable energy development zones, the transmission lines, the the main transmission substations, and the what do they call it, the supply areas. So it's actually very vital before one needs to carry out the demand forecast. So the demand forecast is actually trying to project what will be the energy need of that maybe municipality, maybe district for long term, just as my colleague said. So most times we always recommend you having a 20 years projection, and there are several methods that has been used, but we actually recommend the spatial demand forecast. And this is because the spatial demand forecast actually takes into consideration the population growth at each geospatial area over a long period of time. Of course, there are several other methods like trending, like machine learning, but unfortunately, most of them only take into consideration the temporal component of forecasting. They do not take into consideration how does the population grow over a long period of time. So we always use the spatial demand forecast, which is highly recommended for strategic energy planning. So identifying the energy needs also include looking at, okay, what will happen in terms of housing, how will housing grow, how will the government facilities grow, in fact, even enterprises, even businesses, how do they grow over the long period of time. Then you could now crystallize what will be your focus, what will be your baseline. And that actually helps in terms of looking at what renewable energy source is there or are there to meet these energy needs that have been projected into. So one thing that is also very, very important in strategic energy planning is development of specific goals. This is very, very vital, and that must be crystallized at the inception meeting with stakeholders. It's very, very vital in the sense that the goals of the implementing partner as well as the goal of the client, which is the municipality, now must align. Otherwise, they will say, oh, you promised us a horse, but now we have a camel. We were expecting a horse, but now you give us a camel. So the goals must be strictly aligned. So one of those goals that goes into energy modeling, which is the second step, is actually minimizing total cost. Of course, nobody will buy energy if it's, or let me say, little people there will be low patronage for power generation if it is at an exorbitant cost. So it must be at the least cost. So you want to minimize that as much as possible. And if you look at the several bid windows that we've had, you see everybody, the cost per megawatt for each power generation, for each high PP, everybody just trying to bid because you just want to minimize the cost of power generation. You also want to minimize emissions, and that is, of course, you agree with me, COP28 is currently ongoing in Dubai, which will be ending on the 12th of December. And one of those things that will be discussed is how do you minimize emissions? And everyone knows that South Africa is actually one of the largest coal dominated economies. So we want to try to minimize emissions as much as possible. We want to maximize total new power generation and also develop energy mix scenarios. So on that energy mix scenarios, you actually use what we call the least cost energy mix model. So that model it actually takes into consideration several available renewable energy sources within that district, within that province, within that local municipality, try to plug it into a mathematical model and generate several scenarios. So each scenario could say, okay, if we are not going with coal, we are going with solar, what do we have on ground? What will be the impact on the environment? What will be the impact on water use? What will be the impact on on emissions within the province or within the district or the local municipality. So that plugs into a least cost energy mix model. We have the commercial one, we have the open source ones, but most times we actually use the open source ones because you want a participatory strategic energy planning process of which the municipality involved, they are part of the project, they own the project. So you want to use this a software that they can also always fall back to and not be restricted by the virtue of licensing, by the virtue of proprietary and all that. So which is actually a very good one. The osmosis has actually taken good toll. It has been developed by several other partner universities, of which we are also planning to. We also use it, so we hope that University of Johannesburg will get into the list very, very soon. So one of those scenarios, one of those things that the scenario actually look at and compare is the net present value costs. Of course, you want to minimize that, just as I said. You want to maximize the job creation. You want to minimize the water consumption. You want to minimize emissions and generation capacity. Hence, you need to develop as much scenarios. Tell the district, okay, guys, let's choose from this scenario. Which one do you think best suit us? Of course, the net present value cost of each of them may vary, most certainly. The emissions and job creation also varies. However, there is always the chicken and the egg situation. So which one comes first? So the districts, that's the essence of the stakeholder engagement. The stakeholder decides which one to go for. Another thing that is very important is identifying financing option, and is always recommended. We recommend to districts. We actually we were the one that developed under the USAID funded grant. We developed the Namakwa District Municipality Energy Strategy and Plan. And one of those things we also told the people, the municipalities and the district at large, is to get a financial advisor. So such that you give financial advice. You could be able to get financial advice in that space. How do you interface with power purchase agreement? How do you discuss with financiers? How do you handle them so much so that you don't fall into pitfalls and pit holes? So there are several financing options that the local municipality could actually go for. Of course, government could finance. We have the debt financing. We have several other financing options that could actually be explored in that regard. But it's actually very good that the municipality or the district gets a finance advisor for that regard. So of course, report writing is actually, you compile everything that you've written because you want to give them a document they can actually take to the bank. You want to give the district something they could review, they could go back to, you just like the integrated resource plan for the country. So measurement and verification is actually very, very key, because after 5 years, you want to see whether we are in par in terms of the plan. In terms of the strategy you've developed, you want to know where you stand. In terms of the strategy, you want to know what has gone wrong, what has been done better. And the energy plan actually should be a living document. It's not a static document. And that is why the IRP 2019 is being debated now and is being updated. It should be a living document. So much so that many things, the landscape could have changed, the population could have changed. So what happens? What should we do better? How should we revise it? Don't you think we need to go this route? Why not this route? So it's actually very significant to revise it. It must be a living document. I will also be sharing with, or we will also be sharing with Katie, this reference guide. We developed it during one of our engagements, the last project we did under the USAID grant, the Southern Africa Energy Program. They have actually been supporting this together with SALGA. So they've been supporting the strategic energy planning that we've been doing. So we developed the reference guide for municipal energy plan, which hopefully SALGA promised to make it public on their domain. And we don't know why it has not been public yet, but maybe they're just trying to do some logistics around that. But we'll be sharing this. Is actually we've been given the permission to actually share it to the public. So this contains the nitty-gritties of what to look out for, samples of what to actually do, what do you need to go into, how do you need to walk through the process. So unfortunately, University of Johannesburg PEETS developed two courses, which are Introduction to Strategic Energy Planning, just a basic level of energy strategy development and plan. And we have the advanced one, wherein you delve into the nitty-gritties of the model. How do you optimize the model? How do you develop your scenarios? How do you interpret your scenarios? In fact, how do you quantify water use per power generation? So these two courses are still under review, which will be made available to the public, which anyone could actually benefit. It's not necessary that you should be from University of Johannesburg. It's actually for the public. They are short learning programs. Ms. Savannah Lee here is actually our short learning program coordinator. So she has actually been doing a lot of good work there. And we believe that maybe some of the colleagues might take interest in this and just want to, oh, let me just sign up for the introductory course or the advanced course. Yeah. Thank you so much, Hen. Maybe we'd like to open up for questions.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. And at the moment, of course, you've got people saying, gosh, this is amazing. We could do it for our precinct, but oh, goodness, what a terrible environment we're working in. So let's see what questions we've got here. Our comments, input. Yael, hello. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for that very thorough overview. I think Anne's brought up the point that I just want to explore, please. And that is around the environment or the realities of your local ecosystem. Because I think this is amazing if one's got efficient and effective local government, because that's what is being done. You're dependent on so many different sources of data and efficiency from local, provincial, national government. And I think you're aware, I don't want to be too rude about the dysfunction within Johannesburg local government, but I think it would be interesting to take what you've proposed and identify where the private sector was able to actually do it, because in many respects, we're all beginning to say, we need to do this for ourselves. We cannot depend on local government. And it would just be interesting as to identifying not so much the process, which you've done fabulously, but maybe look at those points of intersection where the private sector could be doing it on a more local precinct-based basis or regional. Okay, so I'm just saying thank you for that, but I'm not sure where the precinct lands up with an independence from the chaos of the bigger environment.
Do you want to try and have a go at that? Because I'm sure you've had that question before.
Yeah, actually, it's really, really important that the private sector actually come to play as well, because they are not left behind. And that is the reason why maybe that was one of the motivations for our short learning program. Reason being that there are quite a lot of local municipalities that don't even have a plan. We have the National Resource Plan, the IRP Integrated Resource Plan, but unfortunately, many municipalities and districts don't even have a plan. Of course, we know of that of the Cape Town, city of Cape Town, but many local municipalities don't have a plan. And universities cannot do this alone. In fact, we just come on board just a few years ago, and having this local partnership with private organizations is actually very, very important if we're going to cover the broad landscape. So I quite agree with you, and there is actually an ample space for private organizations to actually come to play on this playground.
Yeah, so I think that Yael's made a really good point, and so have you. But actually, to take these lessons that you're suggesting, even down to a smaller precinct level, have a plan, understand the needs, understand what's available, understand who could help, support, partner, whatever, might be the way to go, and then invite the state in. Because in some places that we've got some wonderful officials who are working on this, but actually if the private sector does its own assessment of its local needs, however low one goes on those local needs, I think it could be extremely helpful. Hello, I think the professor's coming in here. I'm not sure I'm giving you the right titles. Please forgive me. Not a professor, a doctor. There we go.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for that thought-provoking question you have had. I mean, we're not shy away from the challenge that we've had as a country in terms of energy landscape and implementation. But the truth there is, just like Dr. Paul has said, there's no way we can underplay the role of private institution and entity from the success of any energy strategy. Now, I'm looking at some other low-hanging fruit. For instance, now, apart from in terms of being able to have a self-sufficient generation by private entities, like I did mention the strategy which can even be developed for a real estate now. Like we have some real estate that have their own energy strategy, their own generation strategy and things like that. While we're looking at that, as part of strategy, there's a part of it which sometimes we normally overlook or ignore. That is energy efficiency. You know, in terms of energy efficiency, is something that we can actually even implement with little or no input from the government. There's always opportunity to be able to even save on whatever we have now that we say is not sufficient. So if you look at the document that we actually discussed, there's a component that was making reference to energy efficiency. So on the list, we can begin to consider energy efficiency strategy for our household, for the different estates and things like that. So, you know, having that strategy, you may discover that can even save us up to about 25% in the short and the long run. So I just thought to bring in that input, looking at it from that other angle. Thank you.
Yes, I think that Dr. Olatunji, that's exactly, it's a really good point that you're making there. Before I make another comment, has anybody got another hand here? No. So I think everybody thinks it's a brilliant idea. I'm very grateful to your input. We need to think how we can best tackle this from our point of view in the precincts. The one thing I would quickly mention, and Nikki, of course, has done this with us several times, is that often you have master's students, and it may be that some of our precincts would be extremely good areas for them to be doing some research that could guide the precincts as to how to develop a plan and a strategy. And analyze what's available and what's possible. So we could talk about that separately. I don't know whether you want to comment on that. Nope, gone.
Yeah. I see he was clapping his hand. Okay, yeah. Paul, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, that would be very, very great. That would be so great. We'll be so happy to actually jump into that opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So
we'll follow up on that. There are very definitely some precincts that I can think of that would welcome student research in their area. So let's see what we can link you to. Thank you so much. Thank you for the work you're doing. UJ, always practical, high standard of academic study, and then also lots of practical subjects that they're tackling. So we're grateful for that. Thank you so much.